We're going to have a look at our owl pose now. So this is a bit of a unique one. I think it is one of the more important poses we actually can do in our yin practice, just because it's going to open out an area of the body that's going to get extremely tight for the majority of the global population every single day. So a lot of people spend their time doing this, either typing or driving or writing, and you're going to get this shortening of this back line of the forearm. This is going to be your forearm extensor muscles. And so you're going to spend all this time doing this, and you get this big tightness up into the elbow and pain, up into the attachment, up into there. And you may also get it into the wrist in here as well from doing this all day. So it's very important that we do this position because it's going to offer the alternative, the antidote to that. And so the way we do this is going to be in a shoelace-ish position. You could also do it into more like a square type position in the legs. But there's a slightly easy variation that you can start your students off in. Now, one of the tricky things about this pose is that you need to try and keep your bum on the ground. You could maybe use a very thin cushion or like a blanket or something like that, something a little bit thinner underneath the bum, but you can't use a block because that'll be extremely painful for your students once they do that. And I'll show you why. So one of the easier variations would be we're going to start off with just our right leg out in front of us, like so. And then you're going to bring the left ankle up on top of the right knee, like so. And the idea is we want to try and anchor the right hip down because we're actually going to be leaning over to that left-hand side. And if you bring your knee over too much, it's just going to enable you to roll over onto that left buttock. So foot, ankle over onto that knee helps to really anchor that right hip and right knee down onto the ground. That's one leg variation you can take. If you want to go a little bit further, you can bring it all the way around and come into a shoelace variation. This is going to be the most efficient, and for those that can attain this position in their legs, it's going to be the most comfortable as well. Now, of course, you could also come more into a square position. I personally like to do this a little bit more. So shins stacked on top of each other. If you could just imagine perfectly stacked on top of each other, not perfectly, but you know what I mean. Kind of in alignment, one on top of each other, and then the ankle on top of the knee. You could have the ankle on top of the knee, or the ankle off the knee, more like that. Totally up to you. You find your leg variation. The legs aren't as important as what's going on into the hands and the upper body here. So if your right hip, if we're working on the right hand side and the right hand, then the left leg must be on top. If you get that round the wrong way, then when you lean to the side, this is what will happen. Your bum will just come straight up off the ground because that's that top leg on that bottom leg, which is anchoring that bottom hip down, the right hip down in this instance. So then you place your palm facing up underneath your sit bone. So we want to place the sit bone into the center of the palm, like so. So you may want to remove rings, absolutely. And this is why you don't necessarily want to have a block underneath the bum. Now it's important to realize that to get sensation in the back of the forearm here, I don't need to have my elbow straight. So you try this yourself, you can get plenty of sensation without even straightening that elbow. So it's not about straightening that elbow, so forcing the arm straight. You can get more than enough sensation just by flexing this wrist to try and get this experience. So that's all we're doing, wrist flexion. Hand underneath the bum, sit bone into the palm of the hand. Remember, palms facing up, not down. And then we're going to lean over to the left-hand side. So notice I didn't need anything next to me. So most of your students, especially the ones that are taking full shoelace variation, will not need anything next to them. They'll be very content just to be exactly where they are. So as you lean to the left-hand side, you're going to start to get a little added bonus, getting up into your trapezius as well. And again, like I said, I think this is a very perfect position to come into for the global population who spends most of their time sitting at a desk or with a mouse or driving or using their hands in some manual pursuit. And so in this way, we can directly release all of this, and then also our trapezius. And a trapezius helps to lift the shoulder up and it helps to keep the shoulder up while we're doing all these things with the hands, which means we get really tight. And as you're doing this, you'll notice there's this radiating sensation that comes up to the back of the ear and eventually into the side of the head. And you could imagine doing that all day, tightening these muscles more and more and more, and eventually you're going to get tension headaches in the side of the head. And so in this way, the gallbladder and the triple energizer is in your trapezius, this big muscle in the neck. And then again, you've got these wrist extensors happening And so all those muscles that we're working with back of the forearm, and that's going to be your triple energizer pathway there. Now, of course, if you are doing one of the other variations and you do need a bolster or something at the side, feel free to have the bolster on the side. So you could even lean on it with like the bolster underneath your arm just for comfort, or if you really need just a block or something if you're not going to come that far. Now, if you haven't put the hand underneath the bum enough, you are going to come a long way to the side. So it's just generally a sign you need to tuck your hand a little bit more underneath your bum. It's going to be one of the hardest poses for you to instruct. Definitely learn it well before you start to instruct it, and then it'll be much easier to be able to convey the nuances of this pose. Again, that is our owl pose. So far as compression points, there really aren't going to be any, maybe in the inner thigh as your femur bones come closer together. So you might get a little crunching on the inner thigh, but you're going to get that with shoelace or half shoelace anyway. And that means that for those students, I would just suggest coming more into a square pose in reality, or you can come back into that earlier variation, more like the half square pose with the ankle just on top of the knee, and that'll avoid the thigh bones adducting too much.